I'm so glad that a good friend of mine introduced me to Isaac Klopfenstein. Such a great guy, a math teacher that quit with no plan, no backup income, nothing, with a family at home, and built a cleaning business that's now changing lives across Ohio. Isaac's from Jackson Center. He spent nearly a decade teaching and coaching basketball, but post-COVID, he hit a wall. He felt misaligned with what he was doing. How many of us can relate to that? Are you feeling misaligned? He's going to tell you how he got out of that, how he made bold moves, how he took action, because he walked away with no real plan. He leaned on his faith and he just started piecing it together. And today, that business that he started has grown fast. He's hired team members who've completely changed their customers' experience and their customers' experience. Such a great story. And now, we talk about how he's focused on impact over income, what it really means to be aligned in your life, and why he stopped chasing a number and now he's chasing something that's much bigger and much more important. Stick around for this one. It's good. Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I'm very excited for today's guest, Mr. Isaac Klopfenstein. Did I get that right, Isaac?
You got it right. Yep.
How are you doing today, man?
I'm great. Appreciate you having me on, Phil.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you to know you. We were talking beforehand, so we got introduced by someone Jason, and someone I used to work with from the Jackson Center, Ohio area originally, but now in Columbus. Really an entrepreneurial guy with a cool story that we'll get into. But entrepreneur, real estate professional, but really business owner is your focus, based in Central Ohio. Focus on building businesses and relationships with integrity, clarity, and purpose. You kind of have this slogan that we'll talk about, impact over income, that I think it's going to resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs, but also how you got there, I think is going to resonate with a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs and leaders in business as well. So I'm excited to hear more about your story. Married your wife, Jenna, three kids, 8 and under. So you're like in it, as I say. Also a strong man of faith that you try to apply in your business too. But let's talk about your backstory a little bit, Isaac. So you're a math teacher to start out. So just bring us back and give it kind of catch us up here a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been kind of a math nerd, so to speak. When I was an undergrad, majoring in math, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. Ended up going to grad school to be a teacher. So got my teaching license, went back and taught and coached at Jackson Center for the first 4 years of my career. And then when I got married, moved to Columbus and taught here for about 9 years. And then at the end of the 22-23 school year, left teaching and pursued real estate for a while. Had a couple of cleaning businesses. So I've done a little bit of everything in terms of business ownership and things like that. But at this point in time, pretty much just focused on the cleaning business here in Columbus.
What did you coach?
High school basketball.
So Jackson Center always has had a good program. You probably played, I assume. You went through the program.
Yeah, I played in the program and then went back and coached there for 4 years. So very familiar with the program. And actually, at this point, my brother's actually the head coach at Jackson Center.
Okay. I didn't connect those dots, but it makes sense. All right. So math teacher, a lot of different business. Tell us about, let's go back maybe 10 years ago. You're in your career for 5 to 7, maybe 8 years, but you're thinking about, what are you thinking about at that time in your life?
Yeah. So I think there was a phrase that I heard quite often from colleagues, and it was a countdown. Teachers all the time only have 10 years left. And they're counting down to retirement. And I always said, if I ever get to the point where I'm counting down the number of years I have left, I'm going to be done. 10 years is a heck of a long time. And if I ever get to the point where I'm like, only 10 more years, I knew I was going to be done. And so that was always kind of in the back of my mind. I never felt like I was locked into teaching. And I think a lot of teachers get into it and all of a sudden they get the benefits. They have the public retirement at the end and they kind of get to feeling stuck. And I always kind of had the mentality that I was never going to feel like I was stuck. So at that point in time, I would say 10 years ago, I was still enjoying teaching. I think COVID changed a lot of things. And what I will say, at least from my experience in the district that I was in, it wasn't necessarily the COVID years that really changed education. It was how we came back from it. Because when we came back from COVID, all accountability was thrown out the window. We're not allowed to hold kids accountable for anything. If they didn't do work, oh, it's fine. COVID's been rough. I'm like, that was 2 years ago. Like at some point we've got to get back to holding kids accountable, because I got into teaching and I got into education because I wanted to help prepare kids for the next phase in their life, be that the workforce, be that college, whatever that might be. I wanted to help be a positive impact to prepare them for whatever was next. And post-COVID, it got to the point where if I can't hold kids accountable like I used to, then there's no purpose here. There's no point of me being a teacher anymore. And maybe other teachers were able to adapt and find other ways to hold them accountable. I wasn't able to find a way that was permissible.
Well, I think what it seems like, the word that comes to mind here is you felt misaligned with what you were wanting to do, and maybe what either the school district, the organization that you worked for, this doesn't need to just apply to teachers, but you felt misaligned with the company's mission. And by the way, your mission and the company's mission, like if you're listening to this, you should have your own professional mission, but it needs to be aligned with and feel good about it with the company's mission. It felt like that had there just misalignment was being created, and you had to make a choice. Can I find the alignment in this profession, or do I go create alignment on my own? Is that a fair assessment?
That's very well said. I love that. And I agree that, you need to have your own personal mission as well. And I agree that you need to find a way to kind of express that and align that with a bigger organization. I think that if you can find tools and colleagues to come along with and grow with, that's awesome. But as soon as it starts to feel like you're heading different directions, it's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah. So I think, that this isn't pointed at the teaching profession at all, because if you're in the teaching profession and you feel aligned with the school you're in, what you're teaching, the impact you're having, like that is a very, very noble cause. Like it is phenomenal for people to be doing that 100%. So we're not questioning that, but it's not about teaching. It's about every single profession you're in. If you are not aligned with the company you work for or what you're doing, if your core values aren't aligned with the core values of the company, things like that's where you have misalignment, and you really need to be asking the question, am I going to continue to do this? Or am I counting down? I love the countdown too. Am I counting down how many years I have left? And I don't even want to is there a number of years that's okay to you? So I'm 50, I'm 64. I've done this for a long time. And can I start to count down, or when does a countdown become a problem? Because I think people, they keep getting closer. It is a countdown, and they keep justifying it more.
So this is personal. I don't want to generalize this at all. I cannot imagine ever counting down. I just love what I'm doing right now. I love how I'm doing it. I love the impact that I'm having in it. I cannot imagine a year where I'm like, I'm only going to do this for a couple more years. I just need to get through these couple more years. If I like to believe that if I get to that point, I'll pivot. I'll do something different. I'll do it differently. I don't know what that will be. And maybe I'm naive at my age to think that will never be me. But I think I will change. I will adapt, and I'll grow differently. If I ever get to the point where I'm like, I only need to do this for a couple more years, I'll just stop.
So you found yourself a few years ago either counting down or just saying, nope, and I'm done. I'm going in a different direction. Tell me about that phase.
Yeah. And I want to highlight something you said too. There were plenty of other teachers at the district that I was at that were still very much aligned. They were still growing. They were still thriving. And so I don't mean to say that it was the district I was at or anything else like that. It was me personally that I didn't feel like I was aligned anymore. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And so at that point in time, and I think there were a couple key events that were pivotal in that decision, where I just felt like my hands were tied. Like I couldn't do what I felt was right by the kid because of administrators, because of parents, et cetera. And so when I got to that point, I remember sitting with my wife, and so to kind of the full story, my wife was a physician assistant. She did hip and knee replacements for 10 years. And at the end of 2022, she left her physician assistant job to pursue her growth coaching business, her own consulting business. And so she was new in that. She had just started that. And literally 3-4 months later, I sit down with her and I'm like, hey, I don't think I can do this anymore. And it was really scary, right? Because she had just left her job. We had, if I quit teaching, we had no benefits. We have no retirement plan. Like we have plenty saved, but like it was a scary time. And so when I sat down, what her and I decided kind of together is I don't know what was next. I didn't know what was next at the time. I had a cleaning business in Chicago that I was running completely remote, but in terms of revenue, it was a very modest amount of income that it was actually bringing in. It was a side hustle to say the least. And I didn't know what was next, but I did know that I couldn't keep teaching like that.
Yeah. Did something about her leaving her prior career in the medical field and then going into coaching trigger, I want to do this too, or I want to follow? Like, was there a triggering like a mindset flip because of what she did?
And I don't know if it was necessarily because of what she did, but because of some of the conversations we were having and because of the phase in life that we were entering into. We had at that point in time, a 4-year-old and maybe a 1-year-old. At that point in time, I started to realize when I was running one of them to daycare, running the other one to preschool, and then trying to get to school on time, I'd show up 5 to 10 minutes late. And there were a couple of times I got called out for it. I'm like, the babysitter doesn't open until 7:30. I've arranged with the preschool to drop off at 7:35 instead of 8 o'clock like we're supposed to. And I can't get here before 7:40. Well, but you're supposed to be here at 7:35. Is that how we treat professionals? Like that? There were some of those events that I'm like, now wait a second. Is this really aligned with where I want to live? Because I would have said back then that my 3 priorities were my faith, my family, and then my work. It did not feel that I was aligned with those priorities. And so I started to realize I would never walk my kids to school. I'd never be able to pick them up from school. I'd never be able to go on field trips. There were so many things that I was going to miss out on with my kids because I was educating other kids instead. And that just didn't sit right with me.
We said the word alignment a lot, or misalignment, and that is coming out in spades. And we're going to talk about the alignment of business and faith here in a little bit too, but, impact over income. Not yet, because I want to ask, what about alignment, core values, but there was a lack of freedom to live in alignment, maybe. Like the word freedom and like what that really means, like free to live aligned. I'm wrestling with what are the words to describe what you were feeling at the time, or even the emotions at the time.
Yeah, I think freedom is, I think you're hinting at the right thing. I think that people hear freedom and they think different things though. It wasn't that I wanted to go golf twice a week. It wasn't that I, wanted the freedom to sleep in the morning. I didn't need freedom like that. I needed freedom, I think, like you said, to express my beliefs, express my core values in whatever way I was feeling called to do so at the time. Very much a man of faith. And when God puts something on my heart, I want to be able to pursue it. I want to be able to go after it with everything I've got. And there certainly is plenty of nobility in teaching. It is a very noble profession. I just don't know that it's what God was calling me to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the freedom to be who you want to be is so important, which goes back to, okay, are you clear? By the way, the first step of that is, are you clear on who you want to be? Like, are you clear on your values, your priorities? You said faith, family, work in that order. Are you clear on just what areas of life are most important to you first? And then on the work piece of it, if that's third, it's not balancing the 3. Is that in alignment with the other ones that are more important than that? Because they need to be to live in alignment, in my opinion. So, all right. You quit the job. You have a little bit of experience in the cleaning industry, by the way, in Chicago, remotely. You've probably seen a little bit. Even though there wasn't the income there to justify and support the family, I don't think, you also saw enough to give you the confidence or the courage, even though it was scary, to take the leap. Right? I sense that I think if I spend the time on this, I can really build this, but let's do it locally as well. There was some of that. Tell me about that thought process and then the kind of the ramp up.
Yeah, I wish I had the clarity that you just described. I did not. I really did not. I didn't know what the Chicago business could be. I
You were
didn't know
scared
what
out of
it
your
would
mind.
be. Out of my mind. Out of my mind. I had no idea what I was getting into. Again, it just felt so much like teaching wasn't it anymore. And I give my wife a ton of credit. She's a great encourager, and she has a lot of faith in me. And when she said, "Hey, I hear you, and I trust that whatever you pursue, you're going to find a way to be successful." And when she can reflect that to me, that was a very powerful moment for me. So I really didn't know. And I would say even for the first, so I got my real estate license the last couple months. I actually completed it right at 30 days. I completed my real estate license. So in the last month that I was teaching, I completed my real estate license. So I was a residential real estate agent as soon as the school year was over, as soon as I was done teaching. I thought that was probably the path that I would pursue. But I did take some time over those first month or two really kind of diving into who am I and what do I want? And that wasn't something that I probably spent enough time considering while I was still teaching. I think a lot of my identity was tied up into being a teacher. But I did a lot of breath work. I read a lot, went to some different, sort of events to really try to figure out, who am I and what do I want to become? And that was a powerful time for me. And looking back on it, I didn't give it enough credit, taking that month or two while I was working, but really trying to focus in on, who am I and what do I want?
I think if I'm encouraging people to first of all, for sure, like really think about who am I, who do I want to become? Like that is extremely important. I was going to kind of make a joke out of it, but I don't want to make light of doing that. What I was going to say is probably do that before you just quit the job.
I highly encourage that. I would highly encourage people to do that. Yes.
I think identity is such a critical word. I mean, we talk about it a fair amount, but like, what is your identity? And there is an identity that we will tie to our career, but that cannot be the core identity, because that also can be completely taken away from us in a moment, right? In an instant. So we got to tie our identity to those more important areas of life. The other thing that I can maybe resonate with is you said you're a math guy, which means you like analysis, and you created, I suspect, a lot of problems that might in the future happen while you were ramping up during this scary time where you're ramping up to just quitting cold turkey, right? Or whatever the right phrase or words for that is. Did you create a lot of problems that didn't happen?
I very much am an analysis guy. And so I actually just within the last month or so pulled up a couple of spreadsheets that I had created at that time, looking like, okay, here's how much money we've actually got. Here's what this looks like. I've gained a lot of wisdom from great friends since then. And one of my favorite lines from one of my very good friends is, don't try to solve tomorrow's problems with today's resources. And looking back on that, I don't know that I necessarily was overly concerned about what it was going to look like in November or December of that year. I had a lot of faith that God was going to lead me in the right direction, and that I was going to be successful in what I pursued, be it the cleaning business, be it real estate, whatever it might be. In that first year, I had a goal for real estate to match my teaching income, and so in that, and I did barely hit it on the last week of the year. That 12-month period, I did match my teacher income. I put a lot of faith in what God can do, and I have a lot of confidence, I think, also in what I can do. So
I can really connect to, don't try to solve tomorrow's problems with today's resources. I didn't think about that when I was making this decision. I was trying to solve all the problems. The single biggest resource that I had that I didn't recognize is I was working full time, and I didn't have much time at all to work on our business, right? I did that in 10, 15, 20 hours, the side hustle, right? But when I left, all of a sudden, the main resource I had way more time, which means I could expand my resources with research, people, associations, network, education, all those things. I now had more time to access and grow from. And if I ran into a problem, I had a new set of time and resources that I could go to when the problems came up, if they came up. By the way, they're completely different than what I anticipated. The problems I anticipated didn't come up, but it was different problems. So you didn't do it as much as I did, but stop creating all these problems in your head and don't try to solve them, because you'll have a different set of resources, knowledge, all kinds of things in the future if and when they happen.
And a lot of those problems you're just going to avoid naturally. Like as you grow and as you evolve, like a lot of those problems you're just going to kind of avoid, or when you get there, you're going to be so much better equipped that you're going to solve them much more easily than you would have 6 months ago.
And especially if you have a growth mindset where you're trying to learn and grow about business and leadership, aligning it with faith, all those, you're going to be in a better position in the future. You're going to have different set of resources and just your own wisdom and knowledge, 100%. So I love that. Now I want to talk to the business owners that are, they're trying to grow and scale a business a little bit, right? They're trying to do that and figure that out. And you started from scratch and you built it up. Tell me about that process.
So I left teaching, kept the Chicago business. It kind of was running, coincide with my real estate business. I got to the point with the Chicago business where I was hitting a wall with Google. Google knew that I was in Columbus, even though all of my business stuff was in Chicago. And so I recognized that the organic growth of that business was going to be limited by my location. So I decided to sell that business and started one at the beginning of 2024 here in Columbus. So Columbus Cleaning Service. And the best thing that I did right off the bat, even with the experience that I had running the business in Chicago, the best thing that I did was I invested in coaching right away. So all through 2024, I was paying a coach she specifically had cleaning experience, growing and starting and growing cleaning businesses. And I will attribute at least some of our success to that coaching. And so anybody, as you're starting that business, never underestimate the power of mentorship or coaching. It was the best investment that I could have made at the time. And it allowed me to grow and scale much more quickly than I would have done without it. I avoided some of the problems, like we were saying. Like there were a lot of problems that I could have predicted, but my coach and mentor helped me avoid some of those pitfalls that. And there are some too that you don't get a second chance. When you're starting a business, there are some things that you just don't get a second chance to do. If you mess it up the first time, there's plenty of things where you'll get second, third, fourth chances. There are also some things when you're starting a business that you don't get a second chance. And so she was able to help me avoid some of those things.
I have 5 kind of principles of excellence that you can apply to every area of life. So if we're talking about business right now, one of them is your associations, who you associate with. And if that's peer business owners, if that's business owners that have, in a different industry, but have more experience than you, how to manage financials and P&L, specific in your industry. And if they've been there, they've done that. There's so specifically mentors and coaches for sure. I think you should mentor and coach people. And I think you should have mentors and coaches that are helping you grow. And this is a business principle but the reason it applies to every single area of life as well. Like if you don't have someone that you're talking with on a regular basis about how to be a better husband or father, mother, spouse, wife, right? Whatever, have those associations, because I think they are the most impactful thing you can do is find that those associations, that network of people that are growth minded and wanting to grow in the areas of life that you do. So I love that you said the best thing that you did was invested in coaching. And by the way, that is an investment, especially from a business lens. There's a financial investment needed in that. But what do you think, without saying dollars, you don't need, if you want, you can, but percentage of return on that time, that investment?
I would have paid her 10 times what I paid her, and it still would have been a good investment. I don't even think I put a number on it. Like
if you're a business owner, again, industry networks, local masterminds, and we have a business leader lunch we do on a quarterly basis where business owners come in. By the way, Isaac, you should come out to Western Ohio and join us on last Friday of June here. But if you don't have a network of people because business can also be lonely. You can be a lone wolf a lot of times if you don't have, that network and those peers and mentors that you're growing with. So you have a coach, you're growing. You're learning from her, you know, kind of fast forward. Where are we at today? What are we working on? What are we focused on? What's going well? How has it shifted?
Yeah, so the cleaning business has absolutely grown like crazy. In the middle of 2024, the cleaning business had gotten to a point where I needed a little bit of help, and my wife had just gotten pregnant with our third and felt the need or called to kind of step back from her coaching consulting business, because her coaching consulting business was very face forward, lots of traveling. She traveled all over the country speaking on stages, lots of social media. It was very high energy and face forward. She felt the need to kind of pull back a little bit as she kind of went through this pregnancy. And so allowing or having an opportunity for her to step in and start to handle some of the operations in the cleaning business was an incredible blessing. And since the middle of 2024, since she came on, I mean, all of our numbers have just skyrocketed. And towards the end of last year, we were introduced to a couple of nonprofits that we had donated to, and we met a couple people there that as soon as we met them, we're like, these are people we need to hire. Like, we want these people on our team. They were not cleaners, and they didn't have any cleaning experience, but we knew that was something we were being called to help in ways other than just giving monetarily or whatever it might be. We wanted to give employment. There are some situations here in Central Ohio and some communities here in Central Ohio where people desperately just need a chance. And we were really looking to be that conduit through which that could happen. And that was the time where we kind of really turned our business over to God. And we said, like, you know, look, God, this is your business. We'll be the stewards. We'll be the managers. But you are the one who put this on our hearts to start. You're the one who has led this through all of the ups and downs that we've gone through. And so we're excited for whatever God is going to do in that business. And what we chose to do, or what we had the opportunity to do, was to bring on one of those ladies that we met that day. And we got an apartment community, common area cleaning. So 5 days a week, exact same space every day, created a very detailed checklist, created a very, gave her all the supplies she needed, and kind of showed her through that process and trained her through that process. And the coolest thing that has happened is the joy and energy that she brings to that building is remarkable. We've heard feedback from staff. We've heard feedback from building owners. We've heard lots of feedback from residents that she is a part of that community and literally has changed the resident experience in that apartment community. And so where we are at right now is we're really leaning into, like you mentioned, that impact over income. And this is a cleaning business. I never thought I would own a cleaning business. That was never really the end goal. But we've talked about those priorities, right? And with my priorities, my faith, my family, and my work, there is no work-life balance here. This is more of a work-life integration. And we're integrating our faith into this as well. Jesus calls us to go out into the community and to be light and to be salt. And this is a way that we're able to do it. There you go. This is a way that we're able to do it. And it's been incredibly powerful to see the impact that we're able to have on people and on families as well.
That's amazing. And I read that reading this morning, interestingly. I think it's so important to see, like, business. So work is third, right? But it's such an opportunity to support and live and integrate and align with the first two. And that is, like, I think that's my biggest challenge to people, especially if you're a business owner or a leader that controls the culture of your business and has the authority to make that decision. Like, you need to really think about this. And if you're being pulled in that direction, I would just encourage you to have the courage to take the next step further, and the next step further, and the next step further. And if you're in an organization that you can live in this, like, a cleaning person is, and you can live in alignment in most organizations. You don't need to have your own business, but if you're out of alignment, if there's misalignment, you really need to think about a redirect, I would say. But also to the business owners, I would say that if you take that step, or maybe I won't say what I think, but I'll ask you, what has been the result of saying, okay, this business isn't ours anymore. This is God's business. We're going to follow. We're going to, I don't know how much you talk about faith in your business or what you do, but once you kind of made that decision, what has the result of that been from a business perspective?
Yeah. So I will say too, like in terms of priorities, I think I've changed. I think I used to view my priorities as like a list: God, family, business. I don't know that I view it as a list anymore. And this is something I'm currently still wrestling with a little bit. It's almost more of they're braided together, right? This is they're together. It's not a, here I do God, here I do my family, and here's where I do my business. It very much is evolved to where they're all kind of, bleeding into each other. In terms of impact, it's been remarkable. I don't even know if I could put into words exactly the connections, the relationships, the impact that we've been able to have since having that realization has been absolutely remarkable. And there isn't an area where I would say we don't talk about our faith with our cleaners, with our clients, with anything. I guess I view faith as the center of every conversation and every relationship. And that doesn't necessarily mean that in every conversation we're preaching Jesus and we're telling people to be saved and whatever that might be. But in our viewpoint, it's at the center of everything that we're doing and every conversation and relationship that we have.
Yeah. Have you read the book Lead for God's Sake? Is that the book with the cleaning business?
Think so.
There's a book, it's either Lead for God's Sake or there's another one, but it's around a cleaning business and the impact the cleaning company can have when they're just leading in the right way. I listened to it on a drive to St. Louis probably 15 years ago, but it's absolutely phenomenal. I think this list concept is really, really important because I think faith, family, business, like I won't talk about this too much. It's not about, but our logo is a circle with, it has a cross in it, but it's an alignment. And if you think about it, it's this virtuous cycle where faith feeds family, feeds business. But if you can make it where your business feeds and aligns back with faith and it feeds, right, it's a continuous cycle. And it should be a continuous cycle of growth in all those areas of life when they're aligned together. And what's kind of cool about our logo is that that was an accidental result of what we designed. It's kind of neat, honestly. But I think just this alignment of these areas of life that feed each other, work feeds faith. It's not just faith feeds work. Of course it does, but it also can go the other way. I love that. And we haven't really talked about that on here before. Where do you see this going? Like what's the plan? Or is it really just, I don't have a plan and like it's in God's hands and I'm just letting it go? Or like, what's the strategy? What's the plan moving forward?
This is the wild thing, Phil. I actually, being the analytical person that I am, I had, when I started the cleaning business, a goal. If I make this much income, right? If we have this much revenue and I can build it to that much, pretty much fully automated, I can essentially, retire, so to speak. If enough is automated within that cleaning business, and maybe I work, a few hours a week, but for the most part, that would be pretty much automated. At this point in time, I've completely flipped what my goal is. We've hit and surpassed what I said my goal was. But we just are feeling called that God has something way bigger planned for us. And I'm not talking about revenue. I'm not talking about income. I'm talking about the number of lives that we're able to touch. And we've only hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of the impact that we can have on people and in families in our communities. And so I cannot tell you how excited I am about whatever he has planned for us.
And I think if you're a business owner and we've grown, we have what we need financially. We have the resources. Like I could retire if I wanted to. I could sell the business, and you're just feeling a little bit burnt out. I think the question isn't how do I get out of this? It's how do I align this to what's most important? Like I think that's the challenge for people. The other thing I want to say here is that I think the goal like your original goal of, okay, being to a point where I can retire, was your goal that created, there's a reading, I'm going to butcher right now, but creates adversity, which creates endurance, which creates growth of character, and that creates hope. And honestly, a lot of times we create that goal for, I'm not saying it was selfish or personal reason, but you had financial goals, right?
For sure. 100%. It was 100% financial.
But now the goal is impact. And I think the goal is probably also your own growth, like your own growth of character and who you are. That will be an outcome because of the cycle you went through. So it's really interesting how your goal has completely been thrown out the door because you've had the growth to realize what the real goals are.
Yep. Some realization about what's actually important. And I also know that in order to make the impact that God has planned for this business, like I'm going to need to step up again, right? I'm going to need to continue to level up and get better and better in order to continue to have, bigger and bigger impact.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about, so this is important. This is important for you to think about is we have a long-term plan and like some themes around it in our business. But here's what I know is I'm not at the level of leadership I need to be at to have that size of business and to have that impact. Otherwise, I'd already be doing it. I'd already be there. Like I'm not a good enough leader right now to be leading in the leading and having the impact that we want to have, nor is my team. And that's not a knock on my team. We all have to grow. If they were at that level, our business, the impact we're having would be at that level. So I love the mindset of, you need to be content with where you're at today, but not complacent, right? You need to have courage to continue to grow. So that mindset, like you're going to be extremely, extremely successful, but not because it's the pursuit of success, but the pursuit of excellence and growth in yourself. I love that so much.
And rather than, I've always struggled with the word content. I like the word grateful. I'm grateful for where I am. But certainly going to continue to pursue. But the word content, I don't know, has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Actually, the best word, I like talking about content because of the lack of understanding of it. That's why I bring it up, is because I think people misunderstand the word content. And I do think that, like, when I'm trying to explain it, the best word that describes how I try to explain it is gratitude for where I'm at today, but I'm not done. I'm not finished.
Right. Not
and
complacent.
It's definitely not. That's why I like to say with it complacency, which is if I'm content, I can be content and complacent, which says I'm okay. I don't need to grow and get better anymore. Right. So that's a dangerous thing versus replace complacency with courageous. I'm grateful, but I'm still going to act courageously is the mindset that I'm hoping to have myself and maybe help others think through as well. So, Isaac, this is awesome. I mean, this is great. How is the business? I mean, what's the business look like? Where are you guys all at? How can people find out more about you guys and what you're doing?
Yeah, so business is Columbus Cleaning Service. We serve all of Central Ohio. We serve
about to be Dayton
houses.
Too.
Yeah, about to be Dayton. We serve homes. We serve apartment communities. We serve businesses. So we do a little bit of everything. We have a phenomenal team that has grown significantly over the last 6 months. And so, if anybody wants to find us, columbuscleaningservice.com. If you have any cleaning questions or anything like that, if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm relatively active on LinkedIn. Is about the only social media I'm active on. You also can reach out to me. You can find me on isaacklopfenstein.com.
We'll put all that in the show notes, but I'm not done yet because I have some important questions. There was something I thought of earlier and I forgot to mention, but you grew up in West Central Ohio, right? Strong family, strong core values, strong faith. And then you went out of the area. And one of the things that excites me the most is when, of course we want people to come back to the area, but at the same time, when people from the area that have these strong core values, they go and they grow their families and their businesses in other areas of Ohio or around the nation or around the world. I think there's an opportunity to ripple those values, those core values out into Columbus more and into Dayton and wherever it might be. But also like, is there, I just think people from this area, if you want to own and operate a business and you go into these other markets, you just have such a competitive advantage. It's almost, I mean, we see that, but when I talk to these business owners that are all over the place, it just seems like they have this huge advantage from just their mindset and values. Are you seeing that?
100%. I'm so grateful for the blessings that I have, and growing up in that area, growing up with the family and the parents that I had. It was, I'm not naive to understand how privileged I certainly was. And so I have, I think, about a dozen first cousins. They all live within about 3 miles of each other, except for me in Columbus and my sister in Cincinnati. And on the other 10 are all within about 3 miles of each other. So it very much is still that it still is home.
If you step back and reflecting about what you're doing to your business, kind of the shift over the last even, several months and couple years in the mindset and what your goals are, how does what you do, how does it make you feel?
Oh gosh, Phil, I don't know that I take a step back and think about that often enough. I'm excited about what I'm doing. I don't know that I necessarily would say I feel proud, only because of I just don't do that very often. I don't take a step back and look big picture about what we've done or how we've done it. But I certainly am excited. I wake up every day and I'm very excited about whatever God has planned next, and I think there's an urgency to it, that it's going to happen quickly, and that I need to get ready, because God's gonna do big things, in us and through us.
Well, and I think one of the main messages too is, again, whatever you do is such a vehicle for impact, and the simplicity, the perceived simplicity of a cleaning business, but how you look at your business, how you look at the widget you have, whatever you're offering, that is not what business is about. It's about the people and the vehicle, the platform that it gives you to have an impact on your customer. I mean, look at the impact that you're having on your employees, but also the employees are having on entire apartment communities. That's why he's going to Dayton, by the way, because he's going to start supporting ours. So he has to now. But I think it's so neat. Like the vehicle, the widget is just the widget, but you're interacting with people, with human beings. So there is an opportunity to have an impact. Isaac, you're doing it, man. I love it. I'm so grateful that, we were introduced, that we were able to spend this time together, get to know you, and we're going to keep getting to know each other even more. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I love it. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Phil. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Isaac, for the Purpose Matrix. Signing off.